Hello and welcome to the 22nd episode of When I Was Your Age. I'm your host, Roland Parker, coming to you from the first episode of 2024. And as always, it is a joy, pleasure, and a treat to have you here. Today's guest is Thomas Watts. I'm really excited to catch up with him, get a better understanding of his journey with cancer and everything that he's gone through with that. Before we bring Thomas into the stream, a little bit of housekeeping. Make sure that you follow us on Instagram at WIWYA pod. And thank you so much for the support. We are currently at 1,040 followers, and it means so much to me, all of the support that you guys have thrown into that. It really means a lot. If you're listening for the first time, consider giving us a follow. You can do so on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, and you can also catch episodes on YouTube as well. You can find the links to all of those places in the link tree in the Instagram bio. And I think that's going to conclude it for our housekeeping. So we'll go ahead and bring Thomas in. Thomas, how's it going? What's up with you, man?
Not much. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
It's yeah, man. Glad to have you. Glad to have you. So, how was your holiday season? Did you do anything big or any big trips that you had to make?
No, we actually stay fairly close. My wife and I, parents, obviously, I grew up in Vestavia with you. My wife grew up in Pelham, so we're relatively close.
Nice, love that. Well, that's cool. Did you catch any good sports or any? What about movie traditions for your household? What's the go-to Christmas movie?
Yeah, my movies, my wife loves to, Natalie, my wife, she loves to put on Christmas movies starting on December 1st. So we have been just in the background watching movies. I'm not a big Christmas movie fan. I think you watch the same movies over and over every single year. They start to get monotonous.
Mhm.
And so I watched out of my love for her every single year. So we did watch a couple of movies like The Grinch. Obviously, was a staple in our household. And I think we watched one more. I can't remember off the top of my head though.
Nice, gotcha. Was it those are some good ones. Yeah, we're big on letting the Hallmark Channel just like run, and I'll be like, oh, I think this is probably gonna happen. Debbie's like, how could you know that? I'm like, because we've
Yep.
seen one movie, but we really have seen them all.
Yeah, the plot's fairly similar.
It's yeah, and I love that. There's a certain comfort to that. All right. Well, so I'll say this: if you're not currently following Thomas on Instagram, make sure that you do so. We'll throw his up on the stream, and we'll have that in the description of the podcast as well. But if you don't care, we'll go ahead and get into some get to know you questions. So you already touched on this first one, but where are you from, and where do you currently live?
Yeah, from Vestavia. Grew up there. I was actually born in Montgomery and then moved to Vestavia when I was about two or three. I grew up in Vestavia in Birmingham, and I now live a little bit south of Vestavia in Pelham.
Nice, love that. And what is it that you do?
I actually work in finance. I work in investments. Specifically, if anybody's in business and knows what risk management is, I'm in that function for protective life. So it's an interesting function that's a combination of finance, investments, and a lot of math. So it's fun, but if you're not into it, it's definitely not fun.
Sure. Yeah. It could be overwhelming if you don't have the
Yeah,
the itch for the math like that. Yeah.
exactly.
That's awesome. How old are you?
I am 26.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
laughing at you. I'm laughing at you like looking up,
Yep.
trying to do the
Yep.
calculations. 'Cause
You got to
this
do
is
like, oh, born in this year minus what this year is.
yeah.
So that's how old I am.
It's been a recurring theme for kind of this age, like, plus or minus a couple years it's that point where you're
Yeah.
like, well, I think that I'm this age, but I don't know if I really feel like that. And no, it's funny. It's part of why we ask too.
Yeah.
What piece of media are you currently enjoying? So that could be, book, podcast, music, TV, anything that's like integrated into your routine, guilty pleasure, even just something that you just sort of got into. What is that for you right now?
Yeah. I'm not a big TV guy. I like to watch a movie every now and then, but I'm a big reader. And I'm reading this one book called A Peculiar Glory by John Piper. And it's kind of a deep dive on the Christian scriptures in the Old Testament and New Testament. It's more of like a Bible study slash reference book than it is just an easy read. Like, I'm
Mhm.
100 pages in 2 weeks just because it's so dense and you have to get through it and really think about it.
Yeah.
But I'm a big reader. That A Peculiar Glory. Then for TV show, I've actually I picked up the new Percy Jackson series because I
Yeah.
remember reading those books as like a sixth or seventh grader and read the entire series in a couple of weeks. And so I gotta go back to the childhood and reminisce for a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. I watched the first couple episodes too. It visually, I really like the way that they've portrayed like the world there.
Yeah.
I think it looks like pretty good. My is and I could be remembering this way wrong, but I thought in the books his hair was like super dark. Am I making that up or is
I
it
don't
supposed to?
I don't quite remember. There's a lot of stuff that they changed in the TV show. I know they working with the author Rick Riordan, like he is on the cast for the TV show, so at least he had some sway in it. But
Yeah.
I think they found their guy in the Walter. I think it's Walker Scoble. I think they found their guy and just said, "Well, if he's got blonde hair, he's got blonde hair."
It's a yeah, we'll deal. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a love that. Um No, that's awesome. I distinctly remember in, like, the 8th grade, it was a part of the, like, classroom, like, reading, and we would, like,
Hmm.
read through and, like,
Yeah.
discuss it. So, I had, Mrs. Brock, and I just it's a
No,
did you also have
no,
Miss
but
Brock?
I that name is so familiar because everyone else had Miss Brock, and I
Right.
don't even remember who I had.
Yeah. Um, it's a yeah, that sticks out for some reason, but that was, like I hadn't read Percy Jackson up to that point, and then we, like, read it in class, and then, like, in the weeks immediately following, I just, like, sprinted through all the books because,
Yep.
I was, like, so hooked.
That was like the
Um,
first series that my mom went out and bought every single book because I knew I was gonna read them all, and I was like, "I'll pay 'em for them, but I don't care." Like, and I read them so quick because it was just an easy read, and as a kid, it was just a fun, kind of a
yeah,
fantasy lore type of book. Easy
yeah,
read.
and I don't think that there has ever been, um a book or piece of media that is, like, so perfectly captured, like, the target audience. Like, obviously, like, Harry Potter, that, like, kinda spans,
Yeah.
like, generations and stuff, but when we're talking about, like, middle schoolers and, like, I don't think that I knew of anything other than Percy Jackson that had, like, such a chokehold on middle
Yeah,
schoolers like
yeah.
that.
Well, it also helps when you make, like, the summer reading list and, like, required reading in 8th grade. That also helps
Mhm.
the book sales for sure, and then
Yeah,
it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy of where everyone likes it because everyone reads it.
yeah,
Um, yeah.
100%. No, that's awesome. Love that. What is something that you'd consider a luxurious necessity? And I'd be happy to give you some examples if you
No,
wanna
no,
hear
I
them.
know off the top of my head. Good coffee.
Nice.
Good
Good coffee.
coffee.
Love it.
Yes.
Okay. Nice. Alright, tell me about that. What is a good coffee to you? What's your setup there?
Okay, so I love single origin. I don't know how deep we can get in the weeds here on coffee, but I in my free time, as you'll learn, I had a lot of free time the past couple of years sitting at home, and that's kind of one of my luxurious necessities, as you said. Finding a good cup of coffee was fairly hard until I found this place in Hoover called Baba Java, and they have plenty of types of coffees, blends. They have single origins. My favorite single origin, which means it is grown on the same farm. They don't mix beans. They don't blend them together.
Okay.
And then they have different types. I like a good, just quality cup of coffee, light roast, medium roast, dark roast, doesn't matter. Just quality coffee that's not Starbucks or Dunkin',
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah, I get you there. So and I would think, like, with, if we're talking about, like, a single origin, then there's more opportunity for, like, if that coffee has, like, maybe some specific qualities or
Yep.
uniqueness that it's got more opportunity to shine if it's not
Yes.
getting
Yes.
mixed in with other stuff. Yeah,
Yeah, they have like
absolutely.
hints of this and hints of that and notes of this, and it can get fairly complex. But I feel like you should be able to know if, like, I drink my coffee black, and people make fun of me for it, like, "Oh, you don't use cream," or "Oh, you think you're better than us." I just like the taste of the coffee, and you can definitely taste it when you drink black coffee by itself. Like if you go drink from McDonald's coffee, and then you go drink a high quality cup of coffee, you'll be able to tell the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm with you there. I'm a big coffee drinker too, and the main ways that I have it is like an espresso, not Nespresso, but an espresso in the
Yeah.
morning. And and cold brew, like I'll get like whatever the
Oh.
grounds are that I want, and I'll enjoy. It's like a little bit like sweeter. Like it doesn't come out with
Yeah,
like some of the harsher like acidic
the
tones
bitter.
like
Yeah.
with when you're doing like a traditional like I'll like even to the point like I will like have it in the fridge and then like microwave it if I want it hot, like just to have
Uh,
it that way. But
yeah.
yeah, it's a uh,
Hey, everybody's got
pretty
their own
good.
little
So,
thing when it
but
comes to
coffee
coffee.
is
Some people like.
it's a I'm glad that you said yeah. So I think we're like jumping back and
Yeah,
forth a little bit, but
we're a little distinct here in the video, I think, but it's okay.
yeah, I'll get there. But I was gonna say that is often the prototype or typical answer that I give, like as an example when I'm telling people about the question, like, "Hey, to me, luxurious necessity. I tend to think coffee for these reasons. It's like part of my routine, something I enjoy a whole lot and I don't really want to concede just like getting like a Starbucks or a Dunkin' or anything like that. So that's why like that's that to me. But I like to ask it because a lot of people go in a lot of different directions. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, the coffee, great answer. Do you have any bits that you're doing? And a bit to me is like a running joke or an inside joke or something like that. So any bits that you're doing?
No, I feel like I'm a fairly stoic person. I don't like a lot of the laughter and humor that I have really is just like in the moment, and I'm not that funny. I just enjoy a good laugh every once in a while as my voice
Sure.
cracks. There's your bit.
Love that. No, that's awesome. It's a yeah, I think that like having those like certain flavors of humor too it's just as important to have like a reoccurring joke as it is to like go with the flow and enjoy the
Yep.
laugh and like respond to it and like be in the moment. So yeah, that's great. All right, so this next question, we have a running playlist for these answers that I collaborate and kind of add all these ins. So we get this really nice tessellation or quilt of responses when it comes to this question. But given the opportunity to replace the national anthem with any song on your
Ooh.
playlist, what
Ooh.
song would that be? And tell me a little bit about that.
Oh, goodness. Probably Hotel California by the Eagles. It's probably one of
Ooh,
my go-to. That is,
nice.
it's got a lot of symbolism in it, like the national anthem does, but it's also something we could just chill out to and vibe and or like roll down your windows on a car road trip to New Mexico. And that'd be something that I could get behind.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Funny and it's funny too that we were talking about Percy Jackson because I distinctly remember when we were talking about it in class and they're talking about the Lotus Hotel and
Oh
like
yeah.
being stuck in there for so many days
Yep.
that like one specific thing that was cited was like the Hotel California line of like
Yeah.
you can never leave and stuff like
Yep.
that. So that's a we're coming full circle on it. I
Yeah.
love it. And then last question is how do we know each other?
Let's see. I'm just kidding. We went to school together.
It's a yeah, it's a perfect. That's a all right. Well, it's a thanks for running through those. Now we're gonna dive a little more into your story. But what I kind of like to start with is maybe just a really basic top-down view of your journey with cancer, and I want to give you the reins as much as possible here. But yeah, I think a really basic general what was it like? And take me through it.
Yeah, yeah. It's a fairly uh, lengthy dialogue I could go into. It's
Sure.
spanned over 6 years now, but I'm not going to bore you to death, and we can get into it if you like. But essentially, it started back in 2017. I had gotten mono, a virus. Basically, anybody can get mono,
Mhm.
and apparently, this mono had mutated into what's known the Epstein-Barr virus, which caused it to morph into lymphoma, which is the type of cancer I had.
Wow.
So when I was initially diagnosed, I had mono in roughly October of 2017, and then I got diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma in December of 2017. Started chemo in January of 2018, did 6 months, and after 2 months, I think in February or March, I was in remission, and then I stopped initially. Perfectly fine. There was a lot of side effects. I was stage 3, so there was in multiple places in my body. I think it was my lungs, my armpits, my neck, my
Wow.
liver, places like that. But then I came out of remission. I was perfectly fine, cancer free for 4 more years after that. I graduated school. I got married and bought a house with my wife down here in Pelham. And then back in 2021, almost 4 years to the exact week, I started coughing again. I started having issues. Went in. I had some enlarged lymph nodes, which is always a big concern for me. Got scheduled again for another doctor's appointment. Went in. It was cancer again. This time it was stage 4, which meant it's kind of the worst of all stages, and it was in my
Mhm.
blood. And so lymphoma is actually a blood cancer, very similar to leukemia, which most people know about leukemia. But lymphoma is also in the blood, considered a blood cancer. And it was in my bone marrow. So my cells were not healthy cells. They were continuing to reproduce this cancer. So there was a lot of other things we had to do. I went on, I think I did between January of 2022 and well, the entirety of 2022, half of it I was spent basically doing chemotherapy for 6 months, doing I think 4 or 5 different regimens here and there. I was in
Wow.
hospital for in March for a week, week and a half, with another autoimmune deficiency from there, and then I did a bone marrow transplant, which is basically a stem cell transplant. It sounds very fancy, but they basically kill my entire immune system and then pump me full of healthy cells in a sense and just watch me recover. And from there, that was probably the worst. It was a month in the hospital, kind of just feeling crappy, laying around doing nothing. Got out of there in June of 2022. Was fine for a couple of months. Lost my hair, lost all the body on my or all the hair on my body. No eyebrows, no beard, no nothing. Which was pretty interesting to look in the mirror. I was pretty
Yeah.
emaciated. Started eating more. Got healthy again. And then in September again, they biopsied the lymph node here in my neck, and there was another one positive again. They went and took that one out, and so it's just kind of been this constant cycle. And I've gotten to the point now where I don't even consider myself in remission or have cancer. It's just you're living in a state of cancer in a sense for the rest of your life.
Mm.
So now I do kind of monthly, what they're called IVIG, but they're essentially vitamin infusions every single month. They kind of help build up my immune system because I am immunosuppressed, or I kind of have an autoimmune deficiency in a sense.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, I mean, it's been a wild ride for sure. If we want to get specifics, we can. I don't. It doesn't bother me. I'm an open book. But
Sure.
that's kind of the gist of the entire 6 years of what's happened. It's been on and off and on and off and stops and starts. There's been a lot of chemotherapy, immunotherapy. I've done uh, immunology. I've done plenty of things, and I've seen a doctor, I swear, every single month for 7 years straight now, it feels like.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's a that yeah, that's amazing, and, there's a couple things that kinda stood out to me is that the more recent one is you said, "I don't really think of myself as in remission or currently, like, having cancer." How did how did that thought come about?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me was when I initially was diagnosed, I in my brain, being a big book reader, I love philosophical readings. You have like the Stoics and whatnot. And I started to think like a philosopher would. And I said, if you really think about it, you either have cancer or you're in remission. Once you have cancer once, you either have cancer or you're in remission. There is no like I am free of cancer for the rest of my life because you never
Mhm.
know. You're always at an increased risk of getting cancer again, especially from some sort of secondary cancer, something that's not related to your first cancer, just the way it works. So to me, I was like, well, I'm never fully going to be in remission and I can never guarantee myself that. So I might as well just live with this state of being, especially after me, 3 times, 2 or 3 times, it's kind of gotten repetitive in a sense. I'm
Mhm.
like, okay, I'm anticipating it at some point, but I'm living with it. And there's nothing else you can do. I don't fight
Sure.
because I want to. I just fight because I don't have a choice. There's no choice in the matter. You just keep going. You keep pushing forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And so with that then, how does that affect your mindset then? It's because it's I don't know that I've really heard that before. What seems to be the case is that, people they come through, they conquer it for their first time around, and it's it's like that much scarier or that much more devastating when it comes
Oh,
back and comes back stronger in a lot of cases. So I'm wondering what does that look like mindset wise, like for your everyday life, I guess. Like, tell me about that.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I've met a lot of patients that, like for my case, I had stage 3, and then 4 years later, I had stage 4. So in the instance that it came back, it was technically worse because it was even more in my bloodstream. It was kind of more widespread. And patients that are normally like that, everybody's got their own way through cancer, if you will. Mine was to laugh through it and humor. I would make cancer jokes with my buddies and make chemo jokes with my buddies, and they would like in public be, you can't say that, Thomas. You can't. I'm like, I can. I have cancer. I can make a cancer joke if I want to. The older I got, the more I realized that some folks, it was not necessarily their way to fight through it. Was not humor that kind of demoralized them in a sense, and it really made me take a step back and reassess the situation I was in.
Sure.
So I think people have their own take on it. Mine was very much so that I cannot change the past, but I can only change what here on out a decision. I can't decide not to have cancer again. It just is what it is. Doesn't
Mhm.
matter if I go sit and pout in a corner. Doesn't matter if I cry myself to sleep. It's not going to change it. Now, while there is a lot of emotions and there's a lot at stake, obviously, aka your life, there's not much you can do. It's not my decision if the chemo works. It's not my decision if my doctor makes the right call. It's really not up to me in a sense.
Mhm.
It's, if you believe in a higher power, and I do. I mean, I believe that is something that God had allowed me to be healed in a sense, at least to this extent. I just kind of put my trust in there, and it was kind of more of a hands-off approach. And it is what it is. What's going to happen is meant to happen, and His will be His will.
Yeah. I well, I love that it I think what speaks to me about some of the things that you've said is that it there's a release of the control, but it's not a hopeless, like, I just, like, can't do this anymore. It's a I it letting go of certain facets of some of that experience. Like, I'm gonna try to control, like, what I can, but, like, I'm going to, to
Yep,
relax and not worry about the things that I don't have the power to do
exactly.
anything with.
That's exactly my mindset. It's the things that I cannot control, aka the chemo going in my body, the chemo working, hospital stays, like any of that type of stuff I can't control. But what I can control is my attitude, my outlook on life, cherishing the time that I know I have at this moment and that I'm living. Other than that, I just kind of let it go, and it is what it is.
Mhm. Yeah, that's amazing. The one one other thought that I had, when you were talking about the general experience was, when you had mono and there was that initial, shift and mutation and change, was there any conversation or prediction, like, from the doctors, like, hey, like, this is something that we might need to look out for?
No, I was off at school, so I didn't come home until actually the whole story was I got mono, and then my neck started to swell up. Well, mono does that; it swells your
Mhm.
neck up, it swells your lymph nodes up. But mine was unique, and what really caught the doctors uh, their interest and piqued their interest was it was only swollen on this side of my neck. It was only the left side, which you're looking at looks like the right side, but there's only one side. It's unilateral swelling in the neck. Usually, mono and your lymph nodes will grow in tandem in a sense. So mine was like literally, I can show you a picture, but my neck was out to here, and so I have so much skin that just can pull out because there was just a mass of tumor
Wow.
here. That was really the biggest thing that kind of caught everybody off guard. But I was actually in Texas on a mission trip, and I started getting dizzy. I couldn't walk. I wasn't eating for 2 days straight. I wasn't drinking water. Like it was just bad. And so somebody drove me back here, immediately got tested, and that's when they found it, did a biopsy. So there was a lot of little things that led up to it. Obviously, we probably could have caught it sooner if we had known. But it's one of those things you don't know. It's not like you're like immediately cancer in my mind because if you go to WebMD and you type in your symptoms, it's always cancer. You're always going to
Right.
die. You're always going to have something wrong with you of the utmost uh, deadliness in a sense. So it was definitely unique in how it happened. But yeah, there was really nothing that, in my opinion, we could have done more besides just be more keen on knowing like little things like I didn't know, one side of the lymph node, one side of your neck swelling
Mhm.
versus two sides, something like that. Um, is the little things like that.
Yeah, so it's so interesting to me because I never would have considered, um, mono having a long-term effect like
Yeah.
that, like, with anything, because I've known, like, a handful of people, like to have mono. And that
Yeah,
was never something that like came up of like, oh well, yeah, it's it like chicken pox, like, oh well, you had
yeah,
chicken pox, so like you need to watch out for shingles later. Like it's just like
yeah.
not
Well,
it's
it's
a
not
any
very widely known. So it's something about mono morphing into what's known as the Epstein-Barr virus (EBV), and it's there's some correlation between mono, Epstein-Barr, and lymphoma, and they're doing studies on it now. They don't really know a lot. They just know that there is a link in the three. How it happens, why it happens, I'm not quite sure. I try and stay away from that. My doctor likes to call my dad Doctor Google because when we started going through all this, he was like Googling everything. He's like, "Don't do that. That's like the worst thing you can do is Google anything about cancer because you're going to pull up
mhm,
studies. You're going to pull up things that are saying you're dying even though you're not." And so he always jokes and called him Doctor Google. And so that's what I try to stay away from is trying to learn things by myself on the internet because it can be fairly dangerous if you think about it. Learning things that's technically not accurate.
yeah, that's that's good. So what it's a we talked a little bit about the shift in mindset, and I think for I think a lot of people have this experience with near death experiences outside of cancer and cancer, but was there to tell me about the positive parts of outlook that came from your experience. Is there anything like specific that you could identify with that?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, it increased the closeness of my family and my relationship with my wife, especially the second time around for my wife because we didn't know each other in the first time, but the second time around it definitely strengthened us beyond measure by all means. I mean, when you go through something like that, you either have two situations. It's one, you break it off and you're like, I can't do this, it's too much, and you just see like strife in the marriage and it's tumultuous. And then you have the other side of where you rally behind each other and you focus on what you can control at that moment. And you realize that you have to live in the moment. You know, you don't want to worry about fighting while this person may only have, months to live or whatever it may be. In certain types of cancer, you want to enjoy the time that they have in good times.
Mhm.
So there was a lot of pros in it, honestly. Like I would not go back and change. This sounds stupid and kind of counterintuitive. I would not go back and take cancer away. It's definitely made me who I am. Yeah, the person before cancer is something completely new. It's almost a renewed there's the baptism in the Bible. When you come out, you're a new person. You've been
Mhm.
rebirthed in a sense. That's how
Yeah,
I feel. I feel very much a different person coming out of it because you learn so much during the journeys. Um,
no
it's
doubt.
just a world of difference from prior cancer, during cancer, than after, and what you can learn. My mind was always fuzzy because the chemo can give you like cloudiness in the brain, but after like once that starts to wear off, you have a much more, or I should say, a better appreciation for life and for people and relationships, and that life is more than you think it is. It's not. It's fleeting in a sense, and you
Yeah.
have to enjoy the things that are here and now, and that is people, that is relationships, that is time you have with people.
Absolutely. You mentioned your family and kind of bringing um, them to kind of rally around that. So what did that look like?
That was pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie. Growing up, my family wasn't always like huggy and touchy. You know, some families are very touchy. Like my wife's family, man, they'll hug you the first time they meet you. My family's just like, hey, nice to meet you, handshake. You know, we are what we are. And it was kind of cool to see not just my family, but also community. There was a lot of community events and a ton of people that are watching this podcast that reached out to me, I'm sure. And I appreciate that by all means. Please reach out again if you want to say hello. I'd love to chat with anybody that's seeing this. But it was really cool just because you have that support that you didn't think you have. When I'm going into chemo and I'm getting texts from folks like, "Hey, good luck today," it just brightens your spirits because it gives you kind of a renewed outlook of, I got this. I have people behind me that are pushing me and are there for me if I need anything.
Yeah, that's awesome. So it's a do you even now as you're in remission and we're in an anti state of remission
I like
as
the
you
anti-stater. Yeah, yeah.
it's a
Don't
um
currently have cancer. Yes.
it's a yeah, don't currently have cancer. Is there leftovers from that? Do your family hug maybe a little bit more
Oh
now than
yeah,
they did before?
yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's almost like a renewing of the bond of the family in a sense. When you have a close call like that, it doesn't have to be cancer. I mean, it could be a near-death experience for one of the kids or from a parent or just something as minuscule as something as somebody almost being in a car crash or something, right? You
Hmm.
take that and you take it and you work it for good. I think it's been awesome because I've grown closer to my wife and we've grown closer to my family and we've grown closer to her family, and it's just been really cool to see the support, number one, behind it, and also the genuineness that's in that.
Yeah, that's amazing. And for me, like I relate to a lot of what you're saying about just the support from your spouse. Like it just in the way that you're talking about it, that is the one that I can imagine a little bit easier. I think is like with that's the person that you're with like every single day. But it's awesome to get to see your face lighting up like when you're talking about these things. Um, Something that I'd want to know now is what does your relationship with your own health look like now? Just has there been any impact, any change or change in attitude or anything like that?
I don't think there's been a change in attitude. I think the best thing I could put it is I'm more sensitive to what my body's telling me. So I have to be very conscientious of my heart rate and how fast I'm breathing. And if I have a fever, a lot of these are indications of something's wrong. And I spent almost all of the end of 2021 and the beginning of 2022 with a fever. I ran a fever for like 3 months straight and
Wow.
nothing would tame it. And so it was wild to have to live with that. And I got used to it. So like when I run a fever, I ran a fever, I don't know, 6 months ago, 7 months ago, whatever it was, and early 2023 when I was sick, but I didn't recognize it because I lived with it so long. I was like, I feel fine because I lived so crappily for all of 2022
Oh, wow.
that into 2023 it just felt normal. And when I got better, it was almost I don't even know what normal felt like in a sense. I don't know what being healthy felt like. And so I finally got to that point now. I've been out of cancer, whatever you want to say, for that, months on months on months. And now I feel healthy again. I feel like I have energy and I do. So I'm just more sensitive to what my body's telling me, especially when it comes to anything that could potentially be related to my previous history.
Mhm. Yeah. So, get what were some of the first indicators? Obviously, you had the swelling,
Yeah,
and you mentioned coughing,
yeah,
but,
coughing's a big one.
what what was, like, the window of, like, when you could, like you could go far back enough, like, after your diagnosis, you could say, "I think this is when it first started to present itself," like
Yeah, we actually asked the doctor this. I said, could this cancer, like this mass on my neck, been cancer the entire time? Could it just been mono? And they never gave me an answer because it's so dependent upon a lot of things. And they
mhm,
said it could have happened years before and slowly progressed in your neck, and then you would not have known. And mono and the Epstein Barr might not have been a likely cause at that point, but it's just speculation at the time. So
mhm,
they really didn't know. They never gave me a straight answer. My guess was once the swelling on my neck started to get a little exorbitant, or just that's not even a word, but excessive in a sense, right?
yeah,
Just getting too big for what it just should look like. Your lymph nodes should, not get bigger than the size of an orange. Mine were the
right,
damn softball on my neck, and so I think at that point, when I started to see it, when you see yourself in the mirror every single day, it doesn't look like it's changing much. But when someone hasn't seen you in 3 months and they see something like, "Whoa, what is on your
you're
neck?"
like, "Oh, dude, yeah,
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 that
yeah,
was it. My point. I was like, "Crap, okay, something's up." On top of the cough, on top of fevers and night sweats. Night sweats is probably the biggest like indicator. So like you're sleeping in bed and you wake up just covered in sweat, like
mhm,
drenched head to toe. That is like a big indicator for a lot of cancers in a sense. And so that really threw me off my game. It's like, okay, we got to go to the doctor
yeah."
immediately.
What does it look like now? Is there any impact on just, like, cold and flu season and how you have to approach it?
Yeah, definitely get my flu shot fairly early in the season.
Mhm,
Uh, More of just taking precautions. I ever since I coming out of this, I've been always been pretty diligent. When I had my bone marrow transplant, I basically had zero immune system. Like I literally had zero white blood cells in my immune system. So if I got
wow,
sick, I literally could die just from a common cold. And so I was very diligent about washing hands and wearing a mask everywhere. So I still take a lot of those, washing hands, not touching things I shouldn't, like door handles and stuff. If they have a foot stop on it, I'll use the foot stop. There's a lot of little things like that that we'll try and do to prevent it. Hand sanitizer all the time. that's really the biggest thing for me is just keeping my hands clean because you eat with them, you touch your face, you touch things with it. So that's the biggest thing for me at this point.
That's a that's yeah, that's wild. Like I feel like there would just be it's a step up in how much care you have to have for
Yeah.
those things. And um the you mentioned when your white blood cell count was so low that any kind of just regular common cold could like take you out. That's it's a jarring thing. It's a completely outside of what you had been used to for the majority of your life. um was there was there anything in this journey that you kind of surprised yourself with about either, like how you felt about things, or things that you did really well or didn't do so well? Was there anything that you didn't expect um, when you were going through this?
Probably the length of time. I would probably be the guess. I mean, you never know how long it's
Hmm.
going to take, what you're going to do, for how long you're going to do chemo or stay in a hospital. One of the hospital stays was planned, and so I knew I was going to be there for at least a month, and that was how long I was in the hospital. But one of them was like 10 or 11 days, and it felt like eternity because it was every day I was hoping to get out, and they're like, "Nope, you're staying, you're staying, you're staying." So I think it was kind of this morphing of time in a sense where it felt like it was a lot longer than it was. It felt like it was years, even though it was end of 21, into 22. So it was basically a year, but it felt like multiple years that it was going on.
Hmm.
And it honestly feels like it just happened. Like I can't even remember my entire story of how many times I got it, and to the extent like I have to go back through my wife's phone because she takes pictures. Like, oh, we were here on this date and we were doing this, and so your memory gets just all hazy and jogged and jaded, and it doesn't recall things as it used to. And so
Hmm.
that's my one thing that I hate about it. But the one thing that you mentioned, I think time just being is you never know how
Yeah,
long.
yeah, absolutely. That's that's one thing that would really get to me is like going into it with a certain expectation of like, I don't know, even like contractor timing of like, "Oh, well, it's probably gonna be about 6 months and
Yeah, the
we'll,"
doctors
and,
do that too.
yeah,
Like,
it's
"Oh,
a yeah.
we'll do 6 months of chemo, and that's our plan going forward." But after you get done with that, if you're not exactly in remission or have 0% cancer, then
Mhm.
it's something else. Then that's got 3 months, and it just tacks on. It's almost like a prison sentence. It just keeps getting extended, extended,
That's
extended.
yeah, that's tough. That part I think would really get to me on top of all of the other obstacles, but I think that one would really grind my gears. So in all of this too, you became an author. Like you wrote a collection of just some of your thoughts. So tell me a little bit about that because I've not read it, and I have one coming in the mail, so I'm excited to read it. But tell me about it.
Dude, I coulda gotten you. I have, like, 15 copies sitting over there. I should have brought you
Ah,
one.
gotcha.
Um No, I mean, it actually didn't start like I never just set out to write a book or whatever. I don't really call it a book. It's more of a collection of essays, is what I like to say. And I didn't really set out to write it. I actually just every time I would have a chemo or come home and be bored at home, I was at home for 3 months straight after transplant. And before that, I was working from home full time because I couldn't get sick. I had a ton of time on my hands, and so I would just jot stuff down on a Word doc or a Google Doc, and slowly but surely it just was like almost like every day I was writing something, and it just started to I started to aggregate those in sense, started editing them. I was like, this would be interesting if I put it in like a Kindle format. And then as soon as I did that, Amazon's like, hey, you can do a paperback version of this if you'd like. And so I was like, oh, that'd be interesting. And so I really just culminated all my thoughts down into what would it look like to be in a position of suffering or a position of pain, and what's your outlook on the world.
Mhm.
And so I challenge a lot of assumptions that are made in the world. One of the chapters or essays is called like, "Don't Follow Your Passion." I think that's terrible advice in my opinion. People say follow your passion, but I think if you follow your passion and you get into it and it becomes your full time job, it's no longer a passion; it becomes your job. So, like
Mhm.
podcasting, if podcasting becomes your job one day when this blows up, I know it will.
Completely
One
changes the
day, it
relationship.
changes the relationship with the work that you do, and it doesn't become something that you enjoy doing as a side hobby. It becomes where it's putting bread on the table for your family, and it just changes everything you know about podcasting, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of little essays in there that I like. I took a lot of good quotes that just popped in my head of doing study on tens of different things. and really just culminated them together. But it was really a modge podge of I literally would like copy and paste devotional like things that I wrote down into like my journal or whatnot, and
Mhm.
literally copied and pasted from the day I was diagnosed to the day I was in remission to multiple other days.
Gotcha. So it kind of came together in the end, but like from the moment that you were like, I wonder what it would be like for me to like put these all together and like in a place where people could read them. What was that process like? Like when you
I actually,
to get it on to Amazon and get it
yeah, it was
published
actually
and
weird. I had looked at the idea of that maybe a couple of years ago after my first battle, and then I decided to do like a blog post. And so back in 2018, I did a series like 5 or 6 blog posts of just like lengthy articles of my thoughts and feelings on cancer, obviously. But this time around, I was like, I'm just going to do like an Amazon Kindle. You know, nobody wants to read a blog; they got to keep up with it, and it's just like
sure.
different articles. A book is you can download it to your Kindle, you can download the PDF, you can buy it online if you want to, and you have it. It's you can flip to the exact pages you want to see it, and so that was really what sparked my interest in it. But it was nothing more. Like there was no, I set it like the lowest price I could for each one to like literally break even on it. Like
Mhm.
I'm not trying to do this for money. I don't care. It's more of I just wanted to do this for me, and regardless what anybody thinks, in a sense, like I don't care what people think. I was like, I want to do this, and so I set a goal. I sat down, I edited it, I wrote some else out, introductions, conclusions, and whatnot. And I just said, look, I want to publish this, and so I did kind of a self-publishing through Amazon, and it was fairly easy, not complex at all. And it made it worthwhile, in my opinion, because I had a lot of people come up to me and be like, "Hey, this is awesome! I resonate with this," and it made me feel good because I'm not alone in these thoughts.
Yeah, that's really cool. Well, and one thing that I really appreciate about it is just the initiative that it takes to do something like that. Obviously, you mentioned that the the process itself was easy, like it was like pretty straightforward, and that in doing the self publish kind of feature through Amazon. But I think that deciding to do something within a creative capacity like that
Yeah.
is really intimidating. Um,
Well, when you look at it, you won't think it's intimidating. Look how thin it is. Like it's
yeah.
very, very thin. Like it's an easy read. I think it's less than 100 pages. Yeah, it's like
Right, but
80.
that's right, but, like, in like, I have my thesis from college, upstairs,
Yeah,
um, and it's bound and stuff, but it's just like what they do at, like, Office Depot, and it's got, like, the plastic, like, spirals running through, and I was like and it's not like a something that it's like, "Hey, like, I wrote this," it's like I think it'd be really relevant to and important for your story. It was like something that I had to do to
yeah,
graduate. Like it's
yeah,
a
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
But so like that part of like putting my own thoughts out there
yeah,
for people to look at and kind of try and do something with.
yeah. Well, it's
That's
you
kind of a
know
scary thought to me.
it is very scary because at first you're like, what are people going to think? Like, what if I make an error? What if someone doesn't agree with me? All these thoughts are flooding through your mind. And at one point, I literally was very close to not pressing the publish button and like sending it out. And there was kind of just this peace that came over me. I mean, in my opinion, it was a supernatural piece of like, just do it. What does it matter, right?
Yeah.
Like you're 26 years old. You've had cancer multiple times. If something else happens and you don't do this, you'll regret it. And so I always live my life in terms of regret. So like fast forward in 80 years, if I'm still living and I look back at my life, I'm not going to regret publishing a book that even if it flops, even if you don't, if one person reads and gets something out of it, it's worth it to me. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it. But if I look back at my life and I'm not going to regret doing that, but I might regret staying at a job too long, or I might regret doing this or doing that. But this is one of those things I don't think I'll ever regret.
Yeah. It's a I don't think that you should. So is there anything that you would write in the future?
I would love to. I've actually started a few other projects. Nothing in solidarity yet. Nothing solidified. But I've got a few ideas that would be pretty interesting. But you know, we'll see what comes.
That's cool, man. Well, we'll be looking out for it. Um, this is a question I like to ask everybody, just because I think it's important to frame whatever our story is and whatever it is that we do. It's important to think about the larger spaces that we are, making waves in, and the way that we relate to people. in everything that anybody could possibly be doing. So what impact have you seen yourself making? I'll leave it up to you there.
What impact? Will you ask me that one more time? What
Yeah,
impact have I made,
you
essentially?
what impact have you seen yourself making? Maybe identifying like, "Oh, I feel like that somebody talking to me about my experience, I felt like that was really valuable for them and what they're going through. Because I
Yep.
imagine that in support groups and things like that, there's a lot of that, like a lot of, reassurance and things like that, but that's a um, could be anywhere. What impact have you seen yourself making?
Yeah, it's actually a fairly odd one. Most folks, when you get cancer, it's usually in the older generations. So,
Mhm,
40 plus. You either get it really young or really old, and I'm kind of in the middle. And so most people I talk to, they're like, "Oh, my dad has it, my mom has it, my grandma." It's not necessarily people our age. The people are our age that have it. But when I talk to people and they're like, "Hey, my grandmother has it, my mom has it," but we have a conversation about it, it's almost like they are getting to talk to their person that has cancer through me and through my experiences. And we get
mhm,
to share those and have a commonality. And it may not be the greatest impact in the world, but if it can brighten their day by one ray of sunshine, then I think it's worth it. I think it's
yeah,
definitely worth it. And I just try and be open about my story and be open about everything. You could ask me any question in the book about my entire past history, cancer, not cancer, and I'm open because if it can help someone else, why not open up? Like,
mhm,
there's no point in shielding your story. There's no point in not sharing your story. And which is kind of the reason I put a bunch of those thoughts together was because if somebody wants to know something about me, there it is. It's out in the open.
yeah,
So there is a lot of impact that people may not see, and I don't care if it goes unknown for the rest of my life. I can make an impact on one person, and if that never gets shared, I'm perfectly fine with that, knowing that I made the impact, and that's all
yeah.
that matters.
Yeah, what and one thing that has kinda stuck out for me in all of this is the clarity that you're offering for people who maybe don't have that same experience, um, and we've always wanted to know, like, how could I be there and best, support, the people in my life that are going through that, um, because it's a little awkward and uncomfortable. There's a certain taboo about asking people about their cancer experience, I
Yeah,
think,
yeah,
because it's like, "Wow, that's such a hard thing, I don't wanna bring it up."
yeah,
Um, but at the same time, I'm really curious, like, I wanna know what it was like, so that I can, like, fully grasp, like, the the size of the mountain that they climbed, essentially,
yeah.
and, like, how could I be there for others that are going through these things too?
Yep. Number one, I'll state that not everyone will respond or goes through a process the same.
Mhm.
So, if one person gets diagnosed with cancer and the second person gets diagnosed with cancer, the two opposite ends of the spectrum sometimes, right? One could be like, "Oh, I'm perfectly fine. I can't control what I can't control." Someone like myself, where it's just, it is what it is. Then you have somebody that is very emotional, very spiritual, very like, I need to be by myself. I don't know what to do. I'm kind of paralyzed in a sense. So you need to understand which person you're talking to uh, in
Mhm.
that realm, in that regard. And number two, some of the worst words you can hear is "I'm praying for you," or "It's going to be okay," or uh, "God has this," or something like that, right? Where you're trying to reassure them that it's going to be okay, but you're lying to them. You don't know it's going to be okay. You can't make those statements, and it
Mhm.
doesn't make you
Right.
feel any better by someone saying, "Hey, you're going to be all right. It's going to be okay. We're praying for you." I'd rather someone just stop and pray for me versus saying, "We're praying for you." Right?
Mhm.
I don't need a comment on a Facebook post. Uh, I don't need someone posting on social media for me. But sending me a text or calling me needs a world of a difference.
Yeah.
So I think being there for someone, asking if you can, let's grab coffee sometime. Let's do something together. Let's shoot them a text on a random day when you're thinking of them. And don't say, "I'm praying for you." Say, "I prayed for you," or say, "I thought of you," instead of "I'm thinking of you." Like, it
Yeah.
makes those little differences can make a world of a difference, knowing that they have somebody that is championing them behind them. They are their champion and they're pushing them and they're supporting them. And then also buy them lots of chapstick. You get chapped lips all right.
Lots of chopstick. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I love that. Well, I love the clarity of, like, how you're you're painting this picture for me, because I think that a lot of people is that who currently have or have had cancer, it might be really difficult to talk about, or it's just one more hard thing to do. Um, for someone like me who has always wanted to ask these questions, and for you to offer them up so freely, I really thank you and admire you for doing that. It's a really neat perspective to be able to get. Um, unfortunately, like so many people in our lives, have been
Yeah.
affected, in some way. Some family members, some close friends, and
Yeah,
it
and I appreciate you saying that I have clarity, but I'll make it clear that I only have my own experience, and I have clarity
Sure.
about my own experience, but I do not have clarity about everyone going through this because everyone
Yeah,
will handle it
absolutely.
differently.
That's a great
Um,
caveat.
but yes, I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Um, well, one thing I want to know is what's in the future for you?
Man, I don't know. I've gotten to the point in my life that I take it day by day and week by week because I learned to live in the moment instead of trying to plan too much for the future.
Mhm.
People try and control the past, people try and plan for the future. I think it's important that you plan for the future and plan for contingencies, but you got to stop and not just smell the roses, but smell every flower in the garden.
Yeah.
Just stop and enjoy life, where you're at, what you're doing every single night. Whether that's do what you want to do, like enjoy life. Like I like playing video games and I like reading. I'm not going to kill myself or be upset with myself if I read a lot more than I play video games or vice versa. I'm going to do what I like, do what I enjoy, and spend a lot of time with people that I enjoy spending time with.
Yeah. That's that's awesome. That's
So I don't
yeah.
know. The answer is I don't know. I
It's
don't
a
care.
it's a yeah, it's a no clue, not really thinking about the
Yeah, I
future
can't
too much.
control the future, Roland. So
Yeah, that's great. We already established it. Um, no, but I like to ask, and I was interested to see where you were gonna go. Just because it's like I think a lot of times we can get caught up with a lot of vague and often the distance hypotheticals. I know I find myself daydreaming about that kind of stuff, but with your perspective of knowing, just how fragile things can be sometimes, um, being able to step back and enjoy and appreciate where you're at right now. I think that's really
yeah,
important. That's great.
if I had to daydream, I'd love to eventually work on the management team of a nonprofit, like some sort of cancer research institute. I think it'd be
Nice.
interesting because I have that perspective that
Mhm,
can offer up a lot of what those folks that are in the business side of things on the nonprofits or even in for-profit enterprises like hospitals and whatnot offer
mhm.
a patient experience
Yeah.
towards something on the C-suite or to the management level or be a consultant of that type of daydreaming like that. I'd love to work for like a nonprofit where it is focused solely on eradicating cancer from this earth and then offering my perspective and my experiences to help achieve that goal.
Yeah, amazing. I like that. I think that'd be a great fit. Well, let's not get too ahead of ourselves, but let's not uh, give up on that dream either. Um, that's a nice daydream. Um, so this next section here is it's all the questions that I've really got for you is as far as your story, but what I like to give our guest the opportunity to do is ask a question to the next guest and make this this
Okay.
chain of questions here, giving you guys a little bit of agency to control the show a little bit. I like to I'm a gracious and benevolent host in that way. So
Yeah, I would agree with that statement.
thank you. So this question comes from Kat Chapman. She's our previous guest.
Okay.
Um, and it is, what have you done for yourself today to benefit yourself for tomorrow? I think her question is kind of in the vein of thinking about personal health, obviously, but I think you could go
Okay.
so many different ways for that. So, what's something that you've done for yourself today that's going to benefit yourself tomorrow?
I could relate to the personal health one. I'm recently reading a book called Praying Like Monks, Living Like Fools. And it is more about stillness. It's about being calm and praying and meditating when you're in a space of anxiety or um, a state of fear or any sort of just your mind is wired and you're thinking of 70,000 thoughts at a second, and you just need to calm down. And so I there was a little passage in this book that basically talked about how you sit crisscross applesauce like we did in middle school or in kindergarten, and just relax and set a timer on your phone so you're not looking at the time, and you sit there still with your eyes closed thinking about absolutely nothing. And what I like to visualize is my mind is, when you swipe up on an iPhone, you close out all your apps. I do
Mhm.
that to my mind. I basically, in my mind, I'm saying, quit thinking about this, quit thinking about this,
It's a
quit thinking
just
about this.
take it away,
And
take
then
it
I get
away.
it completely empty and I sit there and I just breathe deep breaths and just relax. And people can pray, you can meditate, you can do what you like. But that was something I did today just to try and start it. That was the first time I ever did it. So that's an interesting question, but I guess that's along the personal health line.
Nice. I like that a lot. Well, I want to give you the same opportunity and exercise here. So, what's something that you'd like to ask to the next guest, whoever they're going to be?
That's a good one. You caught me off guard here, so I'll have to think of something on the fly. But I think that's the purpose of the questions here. I think the question I would have for the next guest is, what are you doing for that one person in your life that needs help but has not been offered help yet? So what are you doing for someone in your life that needs help but hasn't been offered help yet? So it could be someone that needs a leg up somewhere in a job. It could be someone that needs help with relationship advice or some sort of sparing them $20, whatever it may be. What are you doing to help someone in your life that needs the help?
Nice. I like that. That's a good one. So sweet. Well, I can't wait to ask the next person and see what they got.
You have to
Um,
listen in
yeah,
and
it's a
see
you
what they say.
have to listen in and find out. So, by
Yeah.
the way, if you have listened, and you have made it this far in the show, what I'd like for you to do is take a screenshot of whatever device you're listening on, and on Instagram, post it on your story with a let's go with meditation emoji. That's it, since we just talked about that, and tag it to let me know that you made it this far, so we can know that people are getting all the way through. But yeah, I love that. All right, well, Thomas, any departing thoughts before we close it out for the evening?
I would just like to say that this is one of the quotes that I like to reiterate pretty often. Uh, Happiness is defined by things, and it depends on happenings. But joy comes from the Creator, and it comes from above. So everything that is you think is happy, and you think you're happy, it actually is derived from things. Where joy is kind of internal joy that comes from the Creator. So I like to
Intrinsic.
always take a step back and think about that. And really meditate on it. I guess meditate, but just think about it.
Dwell on it. Yeah, I love that.
Dwell, good word.
That's good. Um, it's a also it's that's a great thought. But also you should plug where can we get access to your writings?
Yeah, it's just
And
on Amazon. Amazon's gonna be the easiest, only place you can get it.
ev
If you see me in person, ask me. I keep a couple copies on me, just in my
nice.
truck for friends and
Gotcha.
family. But
Go ahead and tell us what it's called.
it's called "Thoughts of a Cancer Survivor: Essays on Everyday Life."
Nice. Very good. Well, we will include that Amazon link in the description of the episode so you can find it straight from there. I'll try and put it in notes and stuff on Instagram. But Thomas, thank you so much for being a guest on the show.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man, glad to do it. Well, that is going to conclude episode 22 of When I Was Your Age. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks.